everyone. Hello and welcome in to this late night upload here on Monday. I had originally planned to do this video on Saturday, as I had mentioned in a previous video last week, but I decided to take the weekend off because I can do that. I can do whatever I want. And today we're going to talk about this topic, and that is the wide receiver depth for the Minnesota Vikings as it currently stands as of this recording. And it feels like a really good time to talk about this, and I'm really kind of glad that I waited to make this video because Josina Anderson put out a tweet today that is relevant to our interests regarding the wide receiver group, and we'll get to that in a minute. And overall, it feels like we're at a point in free agency. We've done the majority of free agency. The NFL draft is over. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little concerned about the wide receiver depth for the Minnesota Vikings because it doesn't feel like we've actually done enough to really address it. Now, we've re-signed Chad Beebe. That was a free agency move, if you could call it that, kind of by default. And then we drafted Smith-Marsette in the NFL draft this year. And I find him as a very intriguing prospect, but the problem with prospects is that they're unknowns. They're not proven commodities. We don't know how he's going to translate into the NFL. I have high hopes that he can be a contributor this year, both on the offense and on special teams. But until we see him in action, we really don't have much to really go on. So we can't really pencil him in as a wide receiver 3 just yet. I think most depth charts, if you were to look at them right now, and me as well would agree, that Smith-Marsette is probably wide receiver 5 right now behind Jefferson, Thielen, and then BC Johnson and Chad Beebe. So that's probably where we're at currently before training camp and all of that goes on. So before we go any further, let's go over the current wide receiver depth for the Minnesota Vikings as it stands today. At the top, we have the aforementioned stars in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and then we have the Lake Superior-sized gap between them and the next group. BC Johnson, Chad Beebe, Smith-Marsette is the rookie this year, and then we have a couple of bona fide special teams contributors who don't really see much, if at any, snaps on offense, and that is Dan Chisena and KJ Osborne. KJ Osborne was a draft pick last year, I believe 6th or 7th round, I don't remember exactly, who was brought in, I think, primarily to be a special teams player in the return game, because that's what his specialty was at the University of Miami when he was with the Hurricanes. So that is our current depth. And I agree with everybody, most everybody whose criticism is that it's not enough, right? I mean, we just did a video, had a discussion last weekend about Kirk Cousins potentially being a dark horse MVP candidate for the 2021 season. We went over a lot of reasons about why that could happen and why that probably won't happen. One of the things that I really didn't talk about was the wide receiver group. Now, it's pretty easy to point at Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and say, hey, you got one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. But what's after that, right? If you were to watch a Minnesota Vikings game, you are probably going to be led down this path of an idea that running 3 wide receiver sets is unheard of in this day and age of the NFL. But if you look around the rest of the league, yes, you are allowed to run 3 wide receiver sets when you are not trying to play catch up and not in like 3rd and long situations, right? There are plenty of teams out there that will go empty set backfield for wide receiver spread on 1st and 10. It's a different league these days, but the Minnesota Vikings play a lot of 2 tight end sets. So wide receiver 3 has sort of been thrown to the wayside, and it's just whoever they happen to plug in for whatever specific play it is. And that is where my concern really is the fact that if we find ourselves in a situation where we got to get a first down, the down and distance is pretty significant, or if we're just playing catch up in games, I don't think it's going to be fair to Kirk Cousins to once again have him throwing to a group of wide receivers who might not be very good pass catchers outside of Thielen and Jefferson. And then there's also the possibility, God forbid, knock on wood over here, I don't know if you can hear that, that maybe Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen suffer significant injury. It has happened before. Thielen himself has missed a couple of games here and there because of injury. So there is that potential, right? And if anything of significance were to happen to Justin Jefferson and or Adam Thielen, what is this passing offense going to look like? So that brings us to the point of today's topic, and that is that the Vikings should address the wide receiver group with a free agent veteran addition here before August, in my opinion, maybe even before September. So maybe, you know, some cuts happen from other teams and they decide to go to the waiver wire and see who's available. But there's a couple of people available right now. And there's one guy that I think we definitely should take a look at. So, Josina Anderson, the aforementioned tweet, put out today that Kansas City has been reaching out to Dede Westbrook formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Westbrook himself has also had preliminary discussions with the Minnesota Vikings. So there's a couple teams eyeing Dede Westbrook, and I'm going to tell you why we have the advantage. We have the advantage in any free agency discussion when it comes to Dede Westbrook because Keenan McCardell. He is the current wide receivers coach for the Minnesota Vikings, brought onto the staff this year by Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman, and he gives us the leg in to have a really good connection right away with Dede Westbrook, the free agent wide receiver, because of their time in Jacksonville. So it all comes full circle here. How do you the viewer, you the audience, I'll pose this question to you, feel about bringing in Dede Westbrook to compete for potentially the wide receiver 3 on the Vikings? I think that would be exceptional. I think that would be an immediate upgrade over BC Johnson, Chad Beebe, and allows Amir Smith-Marsette to really get his feet wet, not really have that much pressure on him. I still think he can definitely be a contributor this year. It's just probably going to take him some time to get acclimated to the NFL and the Vikings themselves. Bringing in Westbrook gives us a solid veteran option behind Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson and sort of shrinks that Lake Superior size gap, if you will. So with the fact that we have Keenan McCardell as the ace up our sleeve and that sort of contract negotiations competition with other teams out there, be like, hey, Kansas City's got a lot of stuff. They got a Patrick Mahomes. They don't got Keenan McCardell. He's your guy, you know. So that gives us a little bit of an edge in that. There are other free agents out there, according to Pro Football Network. This is like a 6-day-old list, so this might be out of date by the time you see this. Other notable free agent wide receivers, let me know if there's any of these guys that you would consider. Larry Fitzgerald, Golden Tate, Alshon Jeffrey, Dede Westbrook is listed here, Isaiah Ford, Dez Bryant, Laquan Treadwell, Marquise Lee. There's a couple of names on here I think we should avoid altogether, i.e. Dez Bryant, and I don't think a reunion with Laquan Treadwell is going to make anybody happy or help anybody in any significant way. I was a huge fan of Laquan Treadwell coming out of college, and it just sort of sucks that he's the one Mississippi wide receiver that is just not currently working out, right? Because you see A.J. Brown being successful. You see DK Metcalf being successful. People really like Elijah Moore coming out of college this year. Laquan Treadwell, just the one that didn't work out. Dede Westbrook's probably great. I don't know. We've had the discussion about Larry Fitzgerald. I think his time might just be up. It would be a great story. I don't know if the fit would be good, and I don't know what he has left in the tank. Golden Tate, Alshon Jeffrey, injury concerns, Isaiah Ford. I don't really know all that much about him. I don't know how that is an upgrade over what we currently have. And then we've already talked about Dez Bryant, Laquan Treadwell. Marquise Lee would probably, be a pretty significant flyer, if you will, like a real shot in the dark. I mean, if you're desperate, why not? But I think Dede Westbrook is probably your best bet out of that group of people. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, I do want to mention the undrafted free agents that we have signed as it pertains to the wide receiver group. Here's a couple of names to keep out. Myron Mitchell, Whop Philyor, who is from Indiana, had that great season last year with Penix as his quarterback. And it's interesting, his name Whop comes from, I guess, his love of Burger King Whoppers. I'll put that graphic on the screen. I thought that was pretty wild. Also, in the undrafted free agent group for the wide receivers is Blake Prohl, who is the son of former NFL wide receiver Ricky Prohl. And it just makes me feel super old because I remember Ricky Prohl being in Madden and playing for the Rams, seeing him catch passes for the Rams on Sunday. And now we've got all these players' kids, Antoine Winfield Jr., Asante Samuel Jr., Patrick Surtain II. And then we have Blake Prohl, who's just another piece of NFL lineage. We've also got Chad Beebe on the roster, so maybe two prodigal sons are better than one. So that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about the current wide receiver depth for the Minnesota Vikings. Have we done enough? Can we do more? Is there a free agent wide receiver out there currently that you would like to sign? Or is there somebody else that we could wait for maybe to get cut during training camp or preseason? And I'm going to throw out one more for you for the people who made it all the way to the end of the video. I got a tweet alert from a random ass account that I've never seen before, but for some reason it gave me an alert. And if you don't follow me at Skullhio, please do that. We have a good time over there. They suggested, and they're like quoting sources and stuff, or they're like per source, like trying to be Adam Schefter or something, but it's just some random ass account that's not verified that I've never heard of before. So this is just pure stupid speculation. But they said that there was like a trade like in the works for Julio Jones from the Atlanta Falcons. Like, could you imagine Julio Jones with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen? But that would probably cost way too much draft capital. I don't think that that's the right move for the Vikings, but I passed the question on to you. Would you see a trade for Julio Jones? So I guess in the comments, we'll see who made it all the way to the end of the video to catch the Julio Jones portion of this discussion. So let me know what you think. Who are the free agents that are available that you would like to sign? Does a Julio Jones trade interest you, or is that just so far-fetched you can't even believe it's a thing? That's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.